Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. And today we welcome back an old friend of the channel, Bitcoin Benny. How you going, mate?
Very well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm pretty well. There's been so much happening for you lately, so we're going to talk about Red Fox Labs, what they're doing, everything Komodo has been working on, the space in general, startups, and all that sort of thing. So for those that haven't followed your work, Benny, do you want to talk about your relationship to Komodo and Red Fox Labs?
Yeah, sure. So GM of Komodo have been for about 15 months, and where Red Fox Labs comes into play is Komodo is kind of like Linux, and Red Fox Labs is kind of like the red hat. So we would take the commercial grade build outs and put them on top of the open source technology, so that we've got actual businesses with real products and paying customers on top of Komodo. So they're simpatico. We're here to 100% only to enhance the adoption of Komodo and only build on Komodo tech.
And Komodo, I think, falls into that category of projects that last year I was saying these are the projects that some people view are boring, but they're the ones that are busy building. Just because they didn't spend money on marketing doesn't mean that they're not good investments. And sometimes the boring projects are the best ones. So what have Komodo been busy doing?
Yeah, so Komodo actually, it's interesting you say that, because we do get a lot of criticism for not spending enough on marketing. And when you don't have defined revenue streams, spending a huge amount of money on marketing and not being able to get it back is kind of a wasted expense. You're better off to spend a heap of money on finishing and developing better products. So we've got a whole heap of products coming out. We've just displayed the Atomic Mobile Dex, which is in testing now. But we've been going through a massive rebrand, and that is coming out very soon. And we've used a top flyer agency to do that. So we're pretty excited to unravel that. People keep saying, when is that going to happen? But we learned in our early days not to rush things. It'll be ready when it's ready, but it's not too far away.
Yeah,
so it's a full rebrand, new products, new look, new GUIs. It's really, really lovely.
Yeah, and rebrands tend to get a fresh round of excitement for a lot of projects. And I recommend everyone head over to the Komodo Twitter or website and check out that interface. And what's happening on the back end is it's using the Atomic technology. So we can go from Bitcoin to Komodo in a click of a button on your mobile phone. You've got the private keys. It's all really cool stuff that we've been waiting for this technology to come out.
Yeah, Komodo's always doing something first, or doing something that pushes the envelope a little bit. And the hard part's always been, how do the GUI developers keep up with these guys? They're almost like the nutty professors in the background creating all this stuff. And then they say it does this and this. And the GUI developers say, I don't understand. Can you please explain how that actually works? And now we've got a really good system where we can deliver it to them in a package that they understand. And now they're building out some high top flight stuff.
Yeah. And just for people at home, GUI, we're talking about those graphic user interfaces, because we have all this fancy technology, but we want to get to the point where my grandma can click a button and she doesn't even know what's happening. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, Benny, was initial exchange offerings have got really hot lately, and you've been privy, as I have, to some phone calls and commentary about all these exchanges scrambling around saying, oh, Binance has got Binance Labs, come do it on our platform. And just about every top 10 exchange is probably going to bring out their own launchpad of some description. So what conversations have you heard and what's going on in that space?
Yeah, well, know from personal experience, because Red Fox has just gone through that. But Binance has obviously been hugely successful. There's been a lot of criticism about IEOs, but then on the same token, there's a lot of hype about them as well. So it's kind of like starting to invigorate. I think what Binance has actually done, regardless of whether you like them or not, what they've done is they've brought back interest into new projects. And the thing is that there's a massive queue to each of these exchanges, all the way down to the exchanges with $10 and $12 million of volume a day. They're all doing launch pads now, getting ready. So we've talked to them all, and they're all sort of saying, well, this is how much it's actually going to cost and all the rest of it. Now, the thing is, because they sell out so quickly, the exchanges haven't necessarily, a lot of them haven't shown interest in the project. So what they've done is they've said, we will charge a massive, giant fee for you to come and do your IEO with us, because they'll sell out in minutes. Whereas a couple of the other ones are taking a bit of a different approach, where they're sort of saying, instead of us taking a massive stack of your tokens or a massive price, we'll work on success-based fee, which shows that they've got confidence in what they're doing. So we're trying to work with those ones.
Yeah, and it's a little bit like the old, we'll list you, it's going to cost you a fortune, but we'll guarantee your token's going to pump. And now it's like, we'll do your launch pad, it's going to cost you a couple of mil, but we'll guarantee that we'll make you at least a few $1,000,000. So it's so interesting to watch this dynamic play out. But I'm with you, we want projects that are there for the long run and exchanges that want to actually work with them. And I guess that ties into what Red Fox Labs is ultimately doing.
Yeah, well, if you look at a project like ours, we would say, okay, we're going to go out and do a raise, and we'll raise, say, for example, 5 to 6 million, and that's massive for us, and we can do like huge things, and we can build proper businesses on top of Komodo. But if you go with the wrong top 10 exchange, and you are going to pay, say, for example, $2 million to do the launch pad, suddenly you can't raise 5 or 6 anymore, because you've got to pay back the $2 million that you've put up. You probably have had to borrow some of that money, so therefore you've got to pay back a loan. Yeah. And suddenly a 5 or 6 million raise becomes a 20 million raise. And what you've done is you've turned around and provided absolutely no interest for your investors, because they're never going to get that back. So what happens is, as you see, on Binance, it goes right up, drops right down, and it takes months for you to get your money back. So you're much better off to do a slightly smaller raise with a slightly smaller fee, and make sure that the exchange is looking after you.
Yeah, and careful of dilution, guys. One thing I've been saying is people selling 5 to 10% of their tokens, you have to be aware of that 90% overhang that's going to come and dilute you over the coming years. So people used to get angry if an ICO was selling like less than 50% of their tokens, and now some of these exchange offerings are doing fractions, which is really crazy. But Benny, I want to dive into Red Fox Labs. So you guys are Southeast Asia's blockchain venture builder, as you're saying. So if I'm a startup in Southeast Asia, how would I work with Red Fox Labs?
Well, we do consulting, and we do integration work and customization and all the rest of it. But ultimately, we're more like Rocket Internet. So what we do is we take a business model that's successful in America or China. China's the main focus for us. We look at a unicorn business, so $1 billion plus business. We say, can we replicate that? Is there already businesses like that here? And for example, let's choose Amazon, because everyone knows Amazon. And no, that's not one we're going to do. We'd say there's only 1 or 2 Amazons in this region. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in, we can get a lion's share of this market, we can replicate them very easily. So what we do is we copy their business model, we introduce blockchain, and that allows microtransactions and faster payment settlement, and makes it cleaner for everybody, and it allows people into the internet economy that aren't. So we take that model, we show exactly what it looks like, and then we introduce blockchain technology on top of that, and then we go out and say, right, let's rip in and take market share from these guys. Every company that we build out, we actually take a huge percentage of equity. We give them a little bit, and we give them the raise, obviously. So the CEOs and experts that come in to run those companies will be experts in their field, and they will actually then have a vested interest in making sure that company is worth something, because they're getting an equity share. And us as Red Fox, we would hold a huge percentage of their equity. If they go to IPO or STO, then we would take that money back in. But we do not go into saturated industry sectors. We go into only internet economy, which is going to be worth $240 billion in 2025. So we are focused on e-commerce, media, travel, and ride-hailing and logistics and supply. That's it. That's all we do.
And do you want to talk about the relationship between Red Fox Labs and that token? Is it a utility for the platform, or is it a security token where we're getting a bit of equity and benefiting from profit of all these startups you're going to help? How does that all work?
Okay, so there's multiple uses. We do have later coming an ecosystem which is similar to Red Hat, so it's subscription based. So that would be for payment of contractors, it would be for subscriptions, it would be for all of the network usage. But some of the companies that we actually build out won't require their own token. There's no point creating tokens just for the sake of creating tokens. So if we're building blockchain into a company, we would actually effectively have, for simplistic terms, Red Fox would have a side chain, and that token would be used to settle all transactions and as a reward. So that token would have a whole ecosystem of companies that it's actually supporting, and yet the people that are using the end product would be potentially using fiat or credit cards or whatever, and not even know they're interacting with blockchain. So the use case, the more companies we build out, it becomes more and more and more used and demanded. We also obviously use it for the boring old things, like if you want to pay for your consulting or you want to do that type of stuff, it gets used in the ecosystem. So there's a lot of different utility for the actual for the token itself, and I think it will end up becoming used for 5, 6, 7 different companies.
Awesome. Now, what else excites you at the moment being in Asia? And we had our treasury meeting last week, and there's a lot of focus on tech neutrality and why would a startup come to Australia versus why have you guys chosen Asia?
To be honest, it's a lot of people ask us that question, and as an Aussie, why would you come to Vietnam? It's not as easy to do business. It's not as easy to live. That people don't speak the same language. It's a pretty simple answer, and that is it's really tough in Australia. It's tough to get financing. It's tough to get up and running. It is heavily legislated. Now, the thing with Vietnam and Southeast Asia, also we have similar problems. But in Australia, a lot of these Australian startups have to get funding from elsewhere.
Yeah.
Now, I could say, all right, well, in Vietnam, I have to get funding from elsewhere as well. But I've got, right next to me, I've got Malaysia, and I've got Thailand, and I've got Singapore, and I've got all of these amazing pools of investors, and China. China wants into Southeast Asia. So by me coming into Vietnam and saying, I'm going to do it tough, we're going to get a building here, we're going to deck it out like we've done, we're going to set up, we're going to go through the process, that's a huge commitment. And so these countries around us say we want to have a part of Southeast Asia, and they all want to throw in money. Now, if I'm in Australia, I'd be shaking the tin can on the corner, dancing and doing tricks, trying to get money. And that's a sad indictment, because some of the best companies in Australia will be funded or owned by a lot of these foreign companies, and that's, as an Aussie, that makes me a little bit worried.
100%. The number of times that we've heard that it is so hard to get VC funding, and if you do, you have to bend a knee, maybe pivot to something else. And
yes,
definitely agree with what you've just said there.
Yeah, so it's been very, very difficult here to get your visas and your licensing and all the rest of it, and we've had to incorporate obviously and all that type of stuff. But people will think that we just sort of popped up overnight, but we've been working in the background for 8 months now, and it's taken us 8 months to have something that we're proud of, that we can go to the market and say we can take Komodo to next level now, because we can build proper companies on Komodo, and it's the only end-to-end tech that's ready to do that.
And that's probably my next question. A lot of people are now excited, thinking STOs is going to be the new big hot thing. Let's talk about decentralized finance, and I think the utility tokens has still got a big role to play in what's unfolding in Komodo is that utility token. So are you thinking that STOs are going to be this big thing, or are you real excited about the decentralized nature?
All right, I'm always probably a little bit too honest when it comes to this stuff, but the STOs, there's about 4 main types that you can have. So it depends. Like, you've got an STO where you can have an expected return on investment in the point of equity in a business.
Yeah.
You can have it just for profit, so profit sharing, and not give away any equity.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, I can flip from a traditional ICO model into an STO model and still actually be almost identical to the the ICO model that I've got. But what I just have to do is just say, look, I'm going to share some of the profits with you of something that I'm going to do in the future. And if you look at the usage of a lot of these products that are coming out in blockchain at the moment, they're not making much profit because they're not having many users. So ultimately, it's kind of a bit of a con, really. So I think, as you say, I think utility tokens do have a stronger use case in most instances as these early STOs do. I think it's you've got to dig deep, read the legal terms and jargon. Don't worry about it's like a sports section of a newspaper. People get a newspaper and flip to the sports. In our industry, everyone flips to the tokenomics and how it can make money.
Yeah.
You should read the legals and see what they're actually doing, because these people are very clever at saying, I'm taking your money and giving you nothing in return for it.
And these conversations are good to have, because I'm having a chat with a guy from the UK on Wednesday, and he's just so bullish on STOs and thinks everything else is a waste of time. So it's great to have the different opinions there. Crypto winter, though, is the final topic we want to talk about. So we're starting to see who's been busy building. As you said, maybe projects that didn't spend a lot of marketing because they didn't have a good platform to use yet, versus people that spent a lot on marketing, got hyped and have now fallen away, and yet they still haven't built good wallet support. Their platform isn't complete, all that sort of thing. What are your thoughts on where the industry's at the moment?
I think it's been pretty sad to hear that some of the people have mismanaged money and funds and all the rest of it really poorly. And, you know, as we've talked about, there's projects that had 150 staff that are down to 15, 20 staff now. I think anyone who's spent a massive amount of money on marketing that isn't in that top 4 or 5 that we know have huge, huge deep pockets and wallets, that's just a desperate plea of crap, we're not getting enough stuff brought out. Now, I don't mean to be derogatory or anything, but so I won't mention particular projects, but there are certain projects that have deep enough pockets to buy companies that do function and do have a service or product and then label it under their own banner because their own product doesn't work. Now, that's a luxury. And a lot of these, to be fair, and we always talk about how people have mismanaged and not done well in crypto winter, there's a lot of projects who were trying to do the right thing, who were actually very focused, and they have tried to build out and the market just crushed them. And they're new to business. I talk to people all the time and they say, I don't understand anything about, you know, cap tables or anti-dilution or full ratchet, or they don't understand about how to build business models with revenue streams. And you think, how do you have a business that's worth $1 billion? And the question is, they don't actually have a business that's worth $1 billion. They have a token that's worth $1 billion, and it won't be worth $1 billion for very much longer. So I think it's been good because we've flushed out in Australia we go rabbit hunting, and you put the little rags down the holes and you leave one open and they all come out. And I think it's kind of like how crypto's been in the winter.
Yeah, okay. That's a good analogy. Any final thoughts on people? I'll put all the links in the description to check out Komodo and Red Fox Labs, but how can people follow your work, Benny?
Yeah, well, at the moment, we're ramping up for the IEO. You're the first person we're telling, but we're going, we've decided to go through Queen Benny because I know that it's an Asian exchange, but again, here we go, we're in Asia. They are a top 10 exchange, and this will be the first Komodo project to ever launch on a top 10 exchange and to be listed straight away on a top 10 exchange. So we've had overwhelming interest, and we're really happy and proud to be able to sort of now say the tech is good enough in Komodo for us to now build out sustainable, stable, full-scale products. And the money that we raise and what we do flows back into the development of further Komodo stuff, and that also comes back. It's like an upstream sharing. So I'm excited for what we're doing, but ultimately speaking, let me tell you, we're probably doing something a lot more complex than a lot of projects have done out there. And let me ask you this question. A lot of those have raised $40, $50 million. For $5 or $6 million, we can actually build out 2 major scale companies. So that just puts into perspective how overfunded some of these projects are for what they need to do.
Yeah, and some of my favourite projects only raised a couple of million, and they have built out a working product. As you say, these projects with $1 billion haven't built good wallet support yet, still working on their mainnet and so on. It is really crazy how this world works.
It is. But look, I wanted to say thanks for having me on, and your channel has been on fire, and you've been doing some good stuff. And I think it's just like you, because people think it's restricted to projects, right? But there's a lot of commentators in the space, and I've chosen to be a little bit more quiet and just get on with things and build. But for those who have kept on and done the right thing, we're also seeing the same thing. They've built their channels, they've built their content, they've built their audience, and they're getting rewarded. So I'd like to say to you, congratulations for not being a sellout, and for shilling your mother to try and get by in the bear market. So well done.
Awesome. Thanks, Benny. That does mean a lot coming from you, and I'm sure we'll have you back on the channel in the future. Good luck with everything at Komodo and Red Fox Labs.
Thank you so much, mate. Appreciate it.
Cheers, guys.